I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Nice. Bring it a little bit closer. All right. All right, man.
That's not anything else there, actually.
So,
Well,
Will, every time I see this guy,
yeah,
I'm like, his name. Trying to figure out what his name is.
yeah,
I said it. I was like, yeah, it's RWA. That's a comic book.
yeah.
Which is sick. And it's
Yeah.
out right now everywhere you can. Let's
Yeah,
right here. Look at this. Look at artwork, dog. Shit is sick.
yeah. I actually had like a mix of influence on that one. Like, on setting it up, it was basically like poster artwork and CD album art. So, like with this one in particular, I used "Escape from New York," that Kurt Russell movie. I
Okay.
used that one, and it was the NWA album. I can't remember what name it was. Running.
Mhm.
100,000 miles of running, I think it's what it's called, something like that. And it had just like the same with them, like in the foreground and stuff, running and stuff like that. I was like, well, let's just kind of like do that, where it's this big stuff like Escape from New York,
Mhm.
and then just kind of mix and mash and stuff. And we experimented a couple times, but then like once we finally hit it, yeah, there's like that. There it is. It even almost looks like Doom in some ways, like
Yeah.
the cover art of Doom, just in the middle of stuff.
Yeah. No, it looks pretty sick. Like if people were to get their hands on it, where they can get at bookstores,
Mhm.
hear them.
I put some issues out in local comic stores in Austin. I put some out there in Ropes. Ropes. I forget the name. There's some out in North Austin and the comic book store, Austin Comics. Put one out there. I think I put 2 issues over there with them and stuff. I've mostly been selling them online. Is what I've been doing. Usually through my Instagram or something like that directly, or through a website. We're trying to set up a website for it, and we had some issues with that, and so we're kind of like backtracking and trying to refigure that one. So if like, so we had hacking issues. It's like, oh crap, like, but everybody runs into that. It gets pretty common, and so you just really, it's just like, okay, well, we see this, how to deal with it. What do we do next time to fix it? And so mostly we've been doing it online or at events is where we've been pushing the copies and stuff, because I'm able to get physical copies. I go through a publisher, Morris Publishing.
Okay.
That's what I mostly went through, and you just give them the PDF files and all this kind of stuff, and then they have a price for it. Give them how many you want, and you kind of just go from there. And so that's what I've been mostly rocking with and stuff like that. And then so from here, it's just been testing the waters, seeing what people think about it, and see how it goes.
Yeah.
The algae's getting-
Yeah. They're coming after me,
Oh,
but
man. Yeah, it's hitting people pretty hard.
yeah, no, it's definitely coming in full effect. But besides the point, what I'm looking at is just the attention to detail, but the what okay, on just the cover itself. What made it attract you to want to highlight things and then to keep everything on black and white?
What it was we thought it would look just we thought it would look cool, basically. I mean, we wanted to see how it would look and stuff, and then we were mostly kind of just like tinkering and toying with it. And once we decided, like, yeah, just kind of keep it on the armor and stuff like that, and kind of play with it, kind of go for like that neon look, like kind of like Tron a little bit, but then find a way to also have like a Power Ranger spirit to it, because it is kind of influenced by that too. You know, you got like these group of five and stuff like that, fighting aliens type stuff. But I was trying to just like, let's see how it would go if you take it to a more mature level.
Okay.
You know, where it's a little more raw, a little more gritty.
Mhm.
Not necessarily too serious, because hey, I like to have the funny moments too. You know,
Yeah.
break it up. You know, good generally. You know, you have it all. You have comedy, you have horror, you have action.
Yeah.
You can have it all. Drama if you do it effectively.
Hmm.
And so mostly with that, that's been the goal and stuff. And try to flesh out each character, like, you know, because basically with this story arc, this is like the middle. This isn't like the beginning.
Okay.
Like, I'm more like throwing people in because I thought like, origin stuff like gets kind of boring.
Yeah.
You get kind of tired of origin stuff, even in movies, you know, like in
Yeah.
comics. It's like, you know, why keep going into it with Superman, Spider-Man? We all know
Yeah.
the origin.
Like everyone knows
Batman.
Superman is a like Kansas kid.
Right.
Everyone knows that.
Right.
Everyone
right.
knows that Batman's Sam.
It should be a jumping off point at
Yeah.
this point. Like, yeah, no, this is what you know, and this is where we can go build it from there and stuff and go in this direction, right? And so, like, yeah. And so that's mostly been it. Like, 'cause we're up to 5 issues with it right now.
Okay.
And trying to go for the 6th issue. We're in development on that one. I just was straight struggling with the script on that one. It's one of those, it's like most of them are fine and stuff, but then you'll hit one of them and then it's just like, I don't know if the idea I really had is working. So let me just backtrack it. And then I go forward. You go back and forth a little bit. So I had to always say like, oh, it's writer's block. You know, I'm just more like, okay, like clearly this is just like, I got to start from the ground zero and stuff like that. And you can't be afraid to start over and stuff like that. So I try to treat it like a sandcastle. Like this is just dumping all the sand out until we start really sculpting at it and stuff and getting it really figured out.
Yeah.
And so you just gotta not be hesitant to just, you know, dump it and just go for it, you know?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people get stuck on where to start. And it's just like, just start anywhere, dude. Just dump it all out if you have to and then just go for it. And yeah, so mostly just that, but just going for it. And the way I do like scripts and all that, like there's a format to it with comics, but I mostly stick to the movie script format.
Okay.
Is how I mostly know because I
Yeah.
took script writing classes at ACC actually.
Okay.
Took script writing classes and it was good at helping me have a style and stuff like that because each style of writing has their own kind of style to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you end up having a unique voice just from writing scripts versus a novel writer.
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole different flow. And so it was able to more write like that. So I just stuck to my strength and I just, you know, with my artists and stuff, Frost jumps on. He does it all digitally and stuff, which is cool.
Okay.
Like, you know, it makes it for a quick turnaround and everything. And mostly it's the fact that he's more flexible with it, you know, is how we get into it with the detailing and stuff like that because I'm just throwing like these random notes and pictures. I'm like, yeah, just kind of mix and match with these characters, what should it look like and stuff. And I just leave it to you kind of for the most part.
Do you try
I'm gonna dictate.
create concept for him just to be like, look, this is my idea. Are you good at drawing?
Yeah, I would say like not decent at drawing, like enough to get my idea across. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if I have to draw stick figures to get something across, you know, like if it's for an action scene in particular, that would be hard to draw. I was like, dude, let me just do that.
Yeah.
I mean, because even like creators of Mortal Kombat got to that level, you know, just to like get the basic idea out and stuff. So I take a lot of influence from this and that and stuff because, you know, once you do that, then you can have your own, you know, unique style of how to do things and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we just like broke it down all like that. And once we had the flow, we just kind of kept going for it. And it was just like, once I had the script ready, you know, he would go for it and we would go through like 3 phases of production, like sketches, like raw sketches and stuff. And then once we did that, we would go back, add more detailing. Then for the 3rd phase, of course, the last kind of details, unless I really wanted to change things type of stuff. And that was mostly it, you know, and once we figured it out with issue 1, we had a good idea for 2, better ideas for 3. And so we started getting more better at it. And that's what I like too. I don't like to just like, yeah, this is good, this is excellent.
Yeah.
We don't need to, it ain't broke, then we don't need to fix it.
Yeah.
You know, it's more like, no, this is great. Like, and at the same time, like we can always like do better and stuff like that. Cause even I get a little nitpicky myself. You know, I try not to get too overly critical where it stops me from getting anywhere with it. It's just more like, okay, well, at least, is it solid enough in your mind? Does it make sense? Is it, you know, yeah. And that's what, to me, I have my editor for Esteban. So it's just a 3-man team. It's me, writer creator of it, and my editor Esteban, and the artist Frost, and just the 3 of us. And he does everything. Like, you know, really what it is like too with like all this, like, you know, how I do this and stuff. We just give him notes on like, yeah, put this here, put that there, just so it makes sense or something like that. Little things like that. And so that's just our whole phase of production when we get into it. And this one was like the more like one I was proud of because like I never really done for a splash page and all that. I was kind of just going for it. Like, but even still looking at it, like there's things that we could do better. Like if you look at it right, you know, it looks great. It looks solid. But there's always things we can improve on it. going forward. Because like with issue 5, I had a pretty good splash page idea for it, and I was like, no, let's try this and stuff like that. And it really worked out. Like it was just a 1-page splash and everything.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, it's like, hey, yeah, like this one, I like that one more. I think because 2-page splashes can get a little, I think, messy when you have symmetry at play.
Gotcha,
Symmetry
yeah.
symmetry can be an issue a little bit. Sometimes, and I think there's times where it works and times where it doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have,
Yeah. No, that's interesting. No, it's actually cool to see like the structure of how it gets set up. Just the idea. If you could, where did this initially start? What initially got you to create this whole 5 to 6 issues now?
Mhm.
What was the concept that started it off?
It really was just simply Power Rangers, but with R rating, stuff like that. Like a lot of it too. Like I got even more influenced. Was from the movie The Raid, The Raid Redemption, and the sequel. Like, because I looked at it, and I like movies like this. It's basically the ones that have like a simple concept, like a real survive the night type thing, Because a lot of people want to compare that one to Dread and stuff like that. I'm like, nah, that one came out first. Let's be real. Like, but at the same time, I still like that Dread movie because it was a simple concept and stuff. You're with this character through the whole thing. Like, it's more of a ride like that. I like it. It's self-contained, right? And I like little stories like that. And so that's why I was kind of like going with it. Really, is just like to have like this raw, gritty, pretty simple. Like they're basically, this arc is mostly them surviving an alien invasion. Like the first arc is more, it's more involved in like gangster stuff. Like when they get their hands on technology kind of thing. Stuff like that. It's a whole different vibe than this one.
Okay.
And so that's why I was like, with this one, let's start with arc 2, and then we'll go to arc 1. Then finish with arc 3, and if I have more ideas, we'll go from there. And it's always a matter of like, if it's a good idea, then I'll go for it. If it makes sense, I'll go for it. But if it doesn't, like I don't want to be like ever like kind of the greedy type, that's kind of running rampant with franchises and stuff like that. It just to have a franchise just to make some money, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you always got to consider not just the money, but the legacy too. Like if you don't consider that, then what do you really have?
True.
Because I look at like OG franchises like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. So I mean, it's not really a franchise, but it really did bring out a lot of like, whoa, we got to do a franchise and stuff because look at this bang you can get, And they have a lot of different movies they try, was it the Aragon movie or whatever? They tried.
Yeah, they made the attempt.
They always try, because Harry Potter, boom, that's money, right? That's a whole franchise of movies, and they're still trying to make bank, And then it goes to show, like, the power of franchises, but also, like, you can see the detriments pretty easily too, So it's a fine line to tread, And honestly, with this one, like, I mean, a live action would be cool, but at the same time, like, I think an animation would be better served. I think that would be the best route because ultimately because I'm a big fan of like OG anime movies, not just Akira, but like a lot of the wave of movies that came out of the 80s and stuff like that from Japan and otherwise. And I mean, because there's a lot of cool ones that just kind of go under the radar all the time, And I think like with the rise of like Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that, you see a lot more of it put out there too in clips, memes and stuff. And I think it's a good thing too. I mean, there's a lot of people like, oh, I just want to see, where the meme adds up with the whole rest of it. But you could look at it as like, that's negative, but at the same time, not really. If it gets you interested to watch the full movie, is it really that bad? To me, it's not necessarily a person like just jumping into it versus like, okay, well, is your heart in the right place type thing. So like, yeah, you have an interest in movies and cinema or whatever. And it's always good to see from the best. Like, because I mean, there's a lot of movies like Perfect Blue is one that most people wouldn't really watch. You know what I mean? But it's a deep one, And so that's why, like, with movies like that, you can see like, you can have all this cool action, all this other kind of stuff, and then you can like see it from these examples of how they can get into deep ideas and drama. Like we can do that too. So let's see how like the best operate those kind of things because there's some things that get pretty dark, in regards to theme. And if you're just going by what that can be hard to like say you can know those things and you put it on the page, but is it coming off authentic to people when they read it? You know what I mean? Like, because it's not always like, are you coming from a real place? It's also too, are you convincing enough to be like tapping into people who have like say gone through pretty raw things or something like that. Is it authentic enough? And that's why I kind of wish I would have brought the other issues. I totally forgot on that one, but like in issue 3 we get into like a dream scene where it gets like to where because I want to do things like visually a good chunk of the time, like show versus tell kind of thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, like we didn't really with this one with issue 1, but like over the next few issues that we got into, I wanted to like, with the thought bubbles, with the dialogue bubbles, let's add expression to them.
Yeah.
Let's like visually try to add expression. Like, let's like see if we can have one for fear, for comedy, whatever, you know, make it very expressive. Cause that's what I like too with the manga comics and all that. They are very visually. Yeah. But their visuals are very striking. They always, to me, like they never waste a page.
Yeah.
Like I've run into it with American comics and stuff, and it's like, dude, you wasted a page.
Yeah.
Like, this is a whole page spread, and it's really not that interesting and all that stuff. But you know, there's ones that work, and there's others just like lately. I was just like, nah, man, like this is a waste of a page. I guess I'm being too much with the mangas and stuff. Like I guess I've kind of turncoated a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, it's also too like the way they tell a story, but also like the things they get into, because I like the versatility of them. Like as much as it can kind of read as a one-trick pony. I mean, they get into all things like cooking, basketball, baseball, you know, whatever and stuff. And I always like versatility like that. So I'm like, you know, let's try to have, you know, those kind of this and that, you know, and you can see what works and what doesn't with people. That's why I like reaction videos. You'll see some YouTube, right? You know, react to the movies or whatever. And I'm like, like I thought this was a pretty deep scene. Like I wonder what other people think too.
Yeah.
You know, it really kind of to me gives you an idea of, you know, what works with an audience, you know, like I think that to me should be part of like your research at that level in Hollywood or something like that, to really get an idea and vibe what people are responding to.
That's what YouTube is kind of for. Is you can kind of find reactionary people, like video essays of just things in general. So kind of going into this whole thing, in terms of just the way you kind of put this together, just the inspiration was literally R-rated Power Rangers.
Yeah. At the very, very core, because I was just like, I've always wanted to see them at a more mature level, because early on I saw animes that were pretty dark, like on Toonami. I'm a big Toonami kid, like I say. Because it was like a ritual for me, like after school or whatever, you know, I catch it right in time, I think, for Yu Yu Hakusho and others and stuff like that.
Okay.
But a lot of the time what was cool was that when they would have the, it was like special, like a movie they would put out, or like that.
Yeah.
And one of them, it wasn't a movie, actually, more so like a mini series. But it was Blue Submarine #6.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was a pretty gnarly one, because it got into some pretty messed up, dark stuff.
Yeah.
Like, where you're seeing these innocent creatures getting beaten by a whole mutant shark. And I'm like, what? Like, this is really shocking and traumatizing, right? But at the same time, like, animes can do this.
Yeah.
Because you're, like, at this point, you're used to Dragon Ball Z, you're used to all the others. Some of them get pretty raw. Dragon Ball gets pretty raw sometimes. I mean, you got Vegeta whooping up on kids.
Yeah.
Threatening, like, super revenge against children. But at the same time, like, it's cool to see that, you know, in a way. So it's like, wow, like, you give yourself, like, more of a voice by seeing, like, not necessarily, like, what they do, but then how, like, you can also interwove it into your own ideas and stuff like that. Because with all those things I like kind of coming across, like, you start seeing like, oh, okay, well, what if like Power Rangers was like taken to that level? What if like these other ones that were more kid friendly were taken to that level?
Yeah.
I even had an idea, and I'm still working on it, but it's I had like little take on Sailor Moon kind of thing. It was more like, yeah, let's see if we can like take it to a more like more mature, because I don't necessarily like to say like, oh, go modern with it, more so than like, let's like see like if we can tap into like a human angle, like tap into like what people go through, stuff like that. More so, it's not necessarily pleased like trying to talk at more so to talk to. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to educate nobody and stuff like that. This is more just an expression of not just my ideas, like it's, you know, all kinds of things, you know, in life I think that most people can relate to and stuff like that, loss. And like I was getting into with the issue 3 thing, what we were able to do visually with this dream sequence that I mentioned was basically we were able to visibly show off anxiety pretty well. Like, and basically there's a whole scene down in where, you know, the main character here, she's got like a backstory with her dad and suicide and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in this dream, like, she basically relives it. And once it happens and stuff, the whole reaction of it, she basically has this like white and black thing, like with the visual look, stuff like that. As she's like kind of backing away, like in a dizziness and stuff. And I was like showing that to a friend of mine and stuff like that. And he was like, "Yeah, you captured it pretty well in regards to anxiety and stuff, because it really does flash at you like that. You get like those kind of like your adrenaline spikes and all that kind of stuff and everything, and it gets wild." And so that's where I was like going to go with it and stuff like that. If I'm going to go effective with it, like it's to more show than tell. I could just tell all the time, but it's like I don't know if telling all the time really hits with people. So it's better to show something.
Yeah, some people take to being told stuff. Some people take to like actually finding their own thing. I think it is obviously big to like boost your egg stuff. Like everyone wants to go and find, oh, that's from this thing, and they go down the road. All that.
In its way, I look at it too as an extension of your thing, and it's like, hey, like, because I always was like, nah, man, I hate movies like that have these books afterwards, and then like or before, and those are supposed to fill in the gaps. Like everyone's gonna read the book, like who's on these movies and stuff. Like, I guess to have that expectation to me is a little, I mean, most people who are moviegoers aren't necessarily book readers. And all that kind of stuff. It's more fans that are about that and stuff. And what you could run into is if your fandom is pretty niche, like Star Wars, I think in regards to books can get pretty niche. Yeah. But at the same time, they had some of the cooler stories than the books.
I mean, it was more violent for sure in the books. Yeah.
And there was one like you could that was pretty neat. It was basically what was it called? It was Red Harvest, and it was like the sequel to, or the prequel to, I think it was called Death Troopers or something like that.
Okay.
And it was basically getting into like zombie stuff with stormtroopers and stuff like that. It was like R-rated Star Wars.
Yeah. That would be cool.
Like
I get it's for kids. Like they're trying to make you for kids, but most kids that enjoyed it are now adults.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that thing. I'm sure people who enjoyed the idea that this came from Power Rangers or being R-rated, those kids are now adults who are like,
right,
hey, dude,
and that's
it.
Yeah, and that's definitely the thing to consider and stuff. Like, because I myself, hey, I like these things, but. And I actually, I've seen like what they're doing with the Mighty Morphin comics and stuff like that too. And I'm like, hey, these are actually like some pretty solid ideas. You could probably make a series or movie out of easily. You know what I mean? And like, it's cool, like to say, like to see like that, not actually have its time in the '90s, but then still kind of have these solid comics coming out and stuff. Like I haven't read all of them, but I've been put on some of them and all that. And I'm like, oh, these are getting into more, not necessarily deeper, but like more wild ideas than I would have thought of. On, you know what I mean? And it's
that's cool. Like, so what I will ask you is, I used to want sell up the comic books. I have like, a decent amount of comic book collection. My mom was in comic. My aunt was in. What was your earliest remembrance or inspiration that kind of led you to work there?
A lot of it was.
I know anime was a big one.
Anime, yeah, and really a lot of it was like just watching movies like with family, like a lot of it was with my dad. There's times I'd watch necessarily movies with my mom and stuff like that, like stuff at home, kind of thing, like before kindergarten or before all that kind of stuff, or even in summertime, when there's nothing going on. Yeah. And actually, when I think about it, hers was like with me and her, it turned into to be more TV.
Yeah.
Because I was more at home with her and stuff like that. So we're watching like these more wholesome shows like Little House on the Prairie and all these other ones and stuff like that. And but at the same time, like I got things from her, and then I go watch these movies like with my dad in theaters and stuff like that. And the big thing with that is like we've watched certain movies and stuff, and we got to the point where we were like going back and forth on them, talking about them back and forth, what this meant, what that meant, what have you. And it really just kind of built up, these interests in all these kind of things and stuff. And before too long, like we started going to half price books like after the movie, like we kind of made that a thing. Yeah. So I would like basically raid the comic section over there and just flip through everything that they had, and just whatever looked cool was a lot of like the drive, to give me a comic like and stuff. And a lot of the cool ones, it was either Batman, Punisher. I was never really a Daredevil, Spider-Man guy. Yeah. I mean, some Spider-Mans would look cool and stuff like that. I remember one like I got that was pretty gnarly. This one called the Wasp or something. She's like a female character, that villain, and she's like totally puts a whooping on him and stuff like that. I was like, what? I didn't think anybody could put a whooping on Spider-Man like that. Like I think he got roughed up pretty good or something like that. I was like, what? So that was a pretty raw one. But what I was big on was early on was crossovers and stuff, and like one of the big ones that I read was Marvel versus DC.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it was like the second book or something. Because I looked at it later and I was like, oh, there was another book before this or something like that. And so I think what I read was like maybe the second one. But it was cool, like you had like a lot of dream matchups and stuff like that. You had Batman versus Captain America. Was it Hulk versus Superman? Stuff like that.
Yeah,
and you're like,
that's crazy because I had a crossover book that was, I want to say, Justice League versus Predators.
oh, Predators, like that.
Yeah, like the actual alien, like the
movies, right? Yeah.
1987 Predator movie.
You see, that's a cool idea though. That's
Yeah.
why I like with the comics that they have like the freedom to get into that.
Yeah, because I think the front cover was Superman and the Predator.
Yeah, really.
It was pretty sick.
That's just that idea alone is cool. Like I guess for a cover, and that to your point, like that's what I also was into was crossovers with that because I got Batman versus Predator, and Batman versus Alien, both of those bad.
Yeah,
I like the Alien because that was more survival horror story.
Yeah,
so I'm big on survival horror. That's my thing, Resident Evil, all that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
And so, like outside of movies, TV watching, with family and stuff like that, it turns into nights with your cousin's house, and they got the video games.
Yeah,
they. You got the Nintendo, they got the Super Nintendo or the Genesis.
Yeah.
They got Mortal Kombat and stuff and all these other games that you want to play and stuff. And so it turns into that, you draw influences from all that. And over time and stuff, I think I just gravitated like to the comics and stuff, but also like I was navigating like, hey, I'm actually having an inclination for writing and stuff like that, like it gets to the point where like around third grade, I was making little bitty like paper comics, like labels and everything, so through drawings and stuff. And it was either movies I saw or video games that I either played or saw a commercial of. Like there was like Duke Nukem I saw a commercial of, and it was like a imagery where he's kicking a hog's head over the football goal. And I draw that, and stuff, and then things like that, raise alarms, especially when you're drawing Sleepy Hollow, because that was a gnarly movie, and you're drawing that with the horsemen and the whole tree of heads and stuff. And so and that's where it's like you see your interest and all that, and so it's like you build upon it from there. And when it came out to it later, like in my 20s and stuff, it's mid-20s is when I started realizing, hey, like I think a lot of this, like what I'm good at, I think what most people are good at, you find yourself doing it rather early and stuff like that. So I feel like there's times where, hey, maybe you overlook, what your inclination is, stuff, what your trade is, because a lot of times people lean towards a trade, and it's just a matter of like, oh, okay, what trade is it, because I mean, you can go through the traditional system, like through college and all that stuff. And a lot of people run into their issues and stuff with like debt and all that. And I'm like, dude, I mean, pick up a trade too, man. Like there's a lot of money to be made with trades. So that's why a lot of what I push and stuff like that is find that, lean on. And then with the stuff like this, don't quit your day job, Like a lot of folks, they get into this and all in on this, and at the same time, like, well, you can't just expect results either. Not only do you have to build it up, but I also look at it too. You have to have something rather unique, and especially with how competitive, not necessarily competitive, but
how deep the market is.
There's a lot of people out there trying to put it, they're shoot the shot, and so a lot of it is just, I always like put to it, you got to look at what people are doing and especially what they're not doing.
You got to kind of find the niche within that niche. And then you got to find the little sweet spot within that part too, because then it's like for me, this whole podcast started off because I talk about it, but me and my cousin is shrewd one time. And we had just a crazy conversation, and we're like, man, that should have been recorded. And then it led into this whole conversation.
Whole breakthrough,
the whole idea. And then on top of that, your influence, you see, kind of start to, they get too big, and then they kind of lose their audience. How big they got. And then it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of meat on the bone left. It's just how do you attack it, and then gaining their little sweet spot so that people can galvanize behind you, be like, no, this is actually a good part about this whole thing. Which is why, like, I really wanted to sit down with you because, I grew up in the Bay Area. It's kind of hip hop first. Not a lot of people do comic book stuff. Not a lot of people read. Well, you know what I'm saying?
That's why I look at it. It's, a lot of times, like when it comes to reading, it's got to be about stuff that. Because a lot of folks, I think, when they go through school, it's like, oh, required reading this, required reading that. I get it. I hated that. And what I think I liked with the ours program in particular, I don't know if everyone's like this, but they did have us like, oh, where you can get this particular book or that book. But then it's like you have to test on it and stuff like that, and all that.
Yeah.
But I think there's times where going that route can kind of kill enthusiasm for reading because it's forced upon you.
Yeah.
Either way you like it, because a lot of the times, like if you don't want to do that, then you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where there can kind of be a resentment there, but at the same time, I think as people grow, it starts small and then it can grow bigger from there. If like, hey, you're starting with comics, hey man, you're reading books. Like at the same time, people can be like whatever at the same time, but it's like not all novels are great either. A lot of novels end up at Walmart. That was a tongue twister for me. And I mean, because you see it all the time and stuff, but at the same time, everyone's finding their place, everyone's finding their angle. And that's really what it is. Like, 'cause I look at it too. You can see what people are doing and what the algorithm says is success, but at the same time, is it really the success that you want out of it?
True. Yeah.
And I mean, because a lot of people, I think, get resentful and stuff for not likes or whatever and stuff like that, not getting enough or whatever. At the same time, like you have to ask yourself too, like, is it about that? Is it about the money, or is it about passion here? Because I even with my artist at first, when I started with my artist, I was asked pointedly, basically, is it for the money or the passion of it? I'm like, it's more for the passion, but if we can get the money for it, that's cool. Like at the same time, it's really just I don't need to be super rich more so than just have enough to
start keep going with this.
like what everyone talks about with financial freedom, right? That's the goal, I think, right? Is for everybody.
What's that phrase? Money isn't the key to happiness, but it does buy my happiness.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, and it goes a lot. I mean, money can get you plenty, but there's other things that you don't get through money.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that money attracts. Like that's why I stick to the more money you get, the problems you get.
Yeah.
Because you look at high celebrities and you look at the lifestyle beneath the veil and stuff, and you see they're not always the happiest of people. Like a lot of people, like, oh, they do all this weird stuff. It's like, dude, they're probably going through some weird stuff.
Yeah.
Consider that. They probably not just like that. They've seen some weird stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole Hollywood, like being a child star, even itself, like you're not a normal kid anymore.
Absolutely not. No, because of the world you're put into and stuff like that. And that to me is not just like with that realm. It's more like with any kid in any realm. It's all about how you're guided, how they're guided through that. Like you can, try to protect and all this stuff for anything, but it's more like, nah, are you preparing them? Quite frankly. And a lot of that Hollywood lifestyle, I mean, what are you prepared for in the next party or something? I mean, because a lot of that stuff, like, it gets embedded in people, and it's hard for anyone to let a lifestyle like that go.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But kind of getting not back into this, but kind of get into the topic of, was this initially like, were you always into making comic books, or was there a point where like, I kind of like want to make this into a novel series? Or was that any inclination at all?
No, like, cause me personally, I like to read my novels too. But then I ask myself, like, would this make for a cool novel, or would this make for a better comic book?
That's
because a lot of the times too, I think, when you look at it, most movies nowadays are coming from comics and stuff like that, from novels too.
Yeah.
But I think to me, like the best way to do it is to show than tell, right? Like I keep saying. And so to me, like this is like a storyboarded, like next potential Netflix series or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just look at it like that, because like, hey, not just like, to me, the novel gives a more subjective picture, like that's more based on the reader. That's why a lot of times when you run into certain adaptations of books, like you run into, oh, this character looks perfect. No, they don't.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm like, nah, this characters are exactly how I want them. That's like right off jump here with this comic, with this visuals. Like this is exactly how I want them to look.
Yeah.
I mean, this dude looks like freaking typo negative, And so, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, how do we tweak it where it's have that inspiration, but it's its own thing?
Yeah, right.
Because like, a lot of people can throw the word rip off around and stuff like that. And like, I always say, like, is it really, or is it just like mix and mash of this and that, like everything else? I mean, Power Rangers ultimately is probably mix and mash of whatever. Not everything is that original as I think most people think.
I think that it's the story that is the original of it, but everything comes from inspiration. Like most of these people who made movies in the early 2000s were looking at stuff from the 50s and 70s time frame, and they were looking at something like back when it was like the old school like filmmaking thing, and they're like, let's bring that back, but in modern sense.
Yeah.
So everything is not a bite off of each other, but
Yeah.
inspiration is out there.
Oh yeah, I just look at it as a big amalgamation of a lot of things, like when it comes to people in artistry and stuff, and it's just a matter of what are you drawing from that creates something unique to the audience, you know. And I think with this one, like we struck it pretty unique, not just like because I like mangas like how they can go black and white and all that, and still like visually look really stunning, you know,
Yeah.
like Berserk and stuff like that, full black and white. But at the same time, like you can't tell me like a lot of that artwork isn't like crazy immaculate. I mean, because there's a lot of detailing because it's all hand drawn, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, like there's some of those panels that can just blow your mind. I was like, wait a minute, y'all drew this? You know, this is, to me is almost no different than painting the Louvre.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, the paintings at the Louvre. I should say that, right?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, no, like it to me, it's all a matter of what you're mixing and is it unique enough? You
Yeah,
know, like to the audience to where, like, yeah, some people will say what they're gonna say no matter what, you know. But ultimately, I'm like, dude, there's more. Like this is Devil May Cry, even. You know, this is all kinds of inspiration that I draw from.
Like I'm already looking at this Luchador. I'm like, bro, that's definitely a little bit of Bane in there, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bane and any other kind of like character like
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah.
But it was more like, okay, like a lot of it started out like with the Red Ranger, like, oh, okay, well, let's start it off. Let's just change things up, like who's who and this and that, you know. So I started with her first, built it from there, and then so I was just like, I think this works. I think this fits and stuff. And you know, it's just a matter of like finding what you think will work for an audience, but also like what will satisfy in your mind.
Yeah.
You know, because you're never going to be 100% like on necessarily everything, but at the same time, you can be content with it too. Not like you got to settle, but it's like, I mean, when you get caught up in perfection, you know, like you can go over it so many times and stuff like that. And you're going to be chasing something, you know, that's going to be pretty intangible when it comes to the reality. Like, hey, you're not getting nothing done. You know?
Yeah.
Because that's where I was at, you know, because I was going back and forth so much each time on issue 1. Like I'm going on issue 6 and stuff because that's taken me a while to really iron out the script. But the way I look at it is why it's so pivotal for me, why I'm so back and forth is because like this is the middle of the story arc. You know? Like, this is like act 2 type stuff. So if this is gonna like, you know, because basically with this issue, like issue 6 is a big fight kind of thing, like where this main guy, you know, finds them and stuff like that and goes one-on-one with them and stuff like not one-on-one, I should say 1-on-5.
Yeah.
And but like a lot of the fight scenes, like, you know, draw inspirations like from the best like fight scenes I've seen in movies, like you know, like Tony Jaa movies, especially The Protector, The Raid again, and Jackie Chan movies, Jet Li, and even Sammo Hung recently, you know, because I like Jackie Chan, you know, he'll have that comedy in there.
Yeah.
But then you see like, you know, Sammo Hung movies, and I'm like, oh, you see even more so where that whole wave of that came from, you know, because Sammo Hung is like. Then this is where I like it when it comes to like unconventional. Yeah. Because like to me, that is an unconventional hero. You know, he's a fat guy and stuff. And look at how he can move, look at how he handles himself, and he can still be funny. Yeah. You know, they can get serious with it, whatever, and have these cool action scenes. Yeah. And it's entertaining, you know. And that's why I was like really big on Sammo Hung movies. Like Operation Condor is one of these. I don't that. And he has this gnarly fight scene with this dude. He comes from Hustle, actually. And he's all about this mantis style and stuff like that, you know? And like just clawing at dudes. And like you see some of it, and it's like that would actually be a gnarly movie, like if you took it further. Yeah. You know, it's like there's a scene where he gets on his like ribcage and stuff, and he's like clawing at it, like trying to, and it looks so gnarly and bad. And maybe it doesn't hurt as bad as it looks, right? Yeah. But still, the visual of it. Whoa, what if you took it further? Yeah. Because I draw a lot of influence from lately, modern ones. It's like Invincible. Okay. Because I myself get a little weary of like superhero genre where it comes to, you know, the superhero with tights or that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Spandex, you know, like outfits, you know. I mean, that's why I was more attracted to Image Comics and stuff like that, actually. Like Spawn and all these other ones that they come out with, you know, that were, to me, like, I guess you could say unconventional because, you know, they're not like Batman, they're not like Superman. Yeah. Like to me, it's like the more conventional hero, even that like Marvel put out, you know, ultimately, you know, the more conventional standard, right? But they had different things to go through, like challenges, and they had to go through the comic code, stuff like that. Yeah. So it's like you're kind of put there, you know, through that, and you have to build from there, you know. And that's why, you know, it's interesting how people get shocked, like, oh, Batman killing, Superman killing and stuff. And it's like, dude, you even look as far as the 1989 movies. Yeah. low key killing people
Yeah.
there. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
100%.
don't tell me nobody died in that building explosion in the first movie.
Yeah, he can't save the day like all the time.
No. Well, I look at it too. It puts a reality on it because there's, you know, as much as people were when Superman kills in Man of Steel, I look at it, I was like, dude, he was facing with the reality here. You know, like if you're put into a scenario like that, you know, really, are you going to let it burn or are you going to do what you have to? As messed up as it sounds, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to get into the trap of justifying killing and stuff like that. You know, there's a morality to it. And that's what I like, you know, like when they can go there and stuff and put it to question people more so than like educate and talk to, you know, at people, you know, I should say. You know, it's more like, you know, I like to put questions out there for people to talk about like after the movie and stuff like that. Like what me and my dad have, you know, like with that, you know, movies and stuff like that.
Does that derive deeper when you're making things like that? It's not the pinpoint at like that same memory for other people, but to kind of create I want to have like the next generation to kind of inspire by what they read because it's going to be it's going to be a conversation later. We're like, yeah, my dad used to take me to this, and we used to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think that's what a lot of people should keep in mind when it comes to, you know, because a lot of folks, you know, don't like messing with kids and stuff like that. But it's like, dude, they each all as much as like, you know, I mean, it all comes down to guidance. You know, it really does take a village in a lot of ways and stuff. And I'm not necessarily out to be like this big role model, more so than like, hey, like this is what I stand on, this is what I'm putting out there, and all that. And you know, not every time are you going to be kid friendly. You know what I mean? Like, so I even with myself, like, you know, niece and nephew and stuff, and it's more like, am I, like, I always try to talk to them like growing adults. Like, I'm not just going to talk to you like a child because you're going to grow up and you're going to resent that. And so that's why I say, like, when it comes to the next generation in any regard, you know, it's better to like put them on and guide them through. And, you know, hey, you're going to have some that are going to be more competitive. You know, so that's just the nature of any beast, you know, when it gets down to it, especially entertainment. You know what I mean? That's what comics, right? Ultimately entertainment. And no, I mean, and it's healthy, and it's also like, oh, it can get a little wild too. You know, it's all that matter. I mean, we're all human at the end of the day. That's what I put to. And I look at it, it's like, well, are you trying to protect the next generation? Are you trying to prepare them, or are you trying to gatekeep and, you know, get in the way and stuff like that? Because a lot of people get in their position. And I get it. You know, it's once you get to a position, hey, the last thing you want to do is lose it.
Yeah.
Last thing any king wants to do is lose your spot.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to go quietly when it comes to that. And so if you have a new challenger in the ring who can stand to come, you know, get your lunch.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, of course. But I look at it too. It's like, nah, dude, like, let me show you how we can all put on and we can all, you know, you know,
keep moving forward.
Exactly. We not just like, for us, but also like we can keep the genre moving forward and off. Because I mean, I feel like it had its height in the '90s for sure. You know, a lot of people can argue like, oh, comics and this and that are dead, you know, and stuff like that. Like, I put more stock in the belief of waves, you know, like fluctuation and stuff like that. Everything comes in waves. You know, like a lot of people are interested in comic movies and stuff like that. But I like to also think it goes hand in hand with getting interested in comics as well. You know, it's like, hey, you can only watch the movies, be into the movies so much before you're like want to start getting more of that. And so it's more like trying to look at the long game versus the short game.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's not about getting these likes. It's not about always going for the bag and stuff like that. Are you putting stuff out there that you're proud of? That's
like you said earlier. It's about legacy.
Yeah.
Still,
yeah. Always, yeah. Because I mean, like, I can look back on it and say, hey, man, like everything I did was out of pocket. I put like everything into it, and all I care about it is just finishing it. You know, that's all I care about. I could give a darn if I get all the awards or some awards or whatever. You know, hey, that's cool. That's awesome. You know, oh man, get some accolades like that. But at the same time, you know, you don't want that to be what you're only chasing. You know, that to me shouldn't be the ultimate main goal, is to catch an Emmy and stuff like that. Are you putting your performance, you know, what you're putting out there, are you proud of that? That's really ultimately the goal. It's like even with actors and stuff like that, you know, there's some movies they do just for them. They don't have to do it for everybody or for, you know, to catch the next big thing, you know. You know, and so that's pretty much where I'm at. Like, these kind of comics I want to do, and I have some other ideas in the tank, but at the same time, like, you know, take it slow, you know, take it, you know, because you know, the last thing you want to do is overburden yourself,
Yeah.
and you have all these little plates that you're trying to spin and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and you don't even have like the team like that. You don't have the resources like that,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
And so, if it can build to that point, you know, yeah, like having better means of production, like for this and for others and stuff, would be cool. I just would ultimately want to do animations more so than live action. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I say, live action cool,
Mhm.
but I always feel like with animation, there's a lot more you can do.
And voice actors kind of come in different forms that they can you can almost use the same actor in different characters because they have such a large range. But when you do live action, you're kind of like you're doing stylistic. You're doing the build of a person for that thing.
Yeah, you're kind of limited in that regard, you know. Because you know, you look at voice acting, and it can be very versatile. You know, you have characters like Kratos, you know, voiced by you know, Black Man and stuff like that. And so I'm like, hey, it's not always about that. To me, it's a matter of like, does their delivery and performance coincide with the character they're trying to portray? And yeah, that's why I feel like voice acting would be the best thing. I mean, the only thing I would be a little demanding on that would be harsh was maybe I'd have to like hire a metal vocalist or something, because some of these I'd rather have like a metal vocalist play some of these streams and stuff like that, because you know, some of them like in animes and stuff can kind of come off like a little
corny, a little weird,
a little corny, no, and it's not too believable when it comes to rage, I guess you could say. And so I'm like, hey, what's more real than a metal vocalist, you know, when they can convey rage like they can through their wails and screams. And so I'm like thinking like, hey, if I go that route and get to that, like I would definitely have to have some metal stock, you know.
Yeah, just yesterday I was talking to a metal band. Most of his music is like, dude, how the fuck do you do that with your voice? Like, it's tough. And for you to say like you know, it's cool to have anime like their screams and all that, but when you have a real dude who literally screams for his job, that's it's next level.
It's crazy, and so that's why I feel, you know, like, because there's some animes that do it pretty well, like Attack on Titan. Their dub was pretty solid. With Mikasa, like that character, I think she did it really well, like, you know, conveying all that stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is like great. This is believable kind of stuff that I want, like, you know. And so, like I say, from every little series, this and that, you know, I try to take from and stuff like what they do right, you know, what like I would do differently, because I never try to be like, oh, that's what they did wrong. It's like, no, like, what could I do? That's all. Like, you know, you can't like dictate everything that goes on in One Piece and tell me like, you know, oh, I would, you know, they're wrong for doing it that way. It's like, nah, dude, they're doing it how they want to do it, and that's at the core of it and stuff. People are still down with it.
They're working.
Absolutely, and then a good chunk of them have the filler and stuff like that. You know, some are guilty of it, but at the same time, when you get to that level of maintaining a series and stuff like that, you got to just, you know, keep delivering and stuff. And it's just a matter of, does it make sense to the character? Does it make sense to the series? You know?
What's a comic book series that you'll always reread?
That I reread. You know, I haven't reread too many. But at the same time, like I actually would go back and reread some of the ones that were more of the inspiration for me and stuff like that. It's actually like one of the biggest ones visually was it was one that Image put out, and I think it was like a proto comic of like these characters that they were trying out or something like that. And it was like actually I think the first appearance of that character, the Max, that purple dude, like bite or something like that. And it was that comic, and it was called Darker Image. And it had him on there, and then some other characters and stuff. And I was rereading that, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like, because I'm used to like comics being one kind of way and stuff, Batman and stuff. And that was even more of an eye opener of like how, like, you know, comics can be like horror, they can be weird, they can be, you know, like this dark action and stuff going on too and stuff. So that was like one of those early influences I would like to reread again. And then some other ones, like I think some mangas, because I read like to really inspire myself going forward in other issues, I started reading more mangas. One of them was Battle Angel Alita.
Okay.
And so I mostly leaned for that one because I was like, that's sci-fi, you know, that's action and stuff like that. And I think that's what I'm going with. So there's a lot of inspiration to take from there. And if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to learn from the best. And that to me, I think that's top tier. Especially once I started digging into it and reading it. And no, I would definitely reread that one again. Because that one, like, definitely, like with onomatopoeia and stuff like that, like that definitely like sharpened my edge on that one.
Yeah,
You know, because a lot of people will rely on big Bing Bang and Pow and stuff like that. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm doing Zoom and all these others. Like, I got like an A to Z list now at this point, you know, all these different ones to get into. Yeah, yeah. Because that's what I figured. Like, I mean, if I'm gonna go for that and stuff, I'm gonna need a glossary at this point.
Yeah.
Because like, so I read it and then I'll jot down like, oh, okay, that's what this effect is for, or what I think it's for.
Yeah.
You know, best idea that I can come up with and stuff, and then I just go from there. I try to categorize it, and so I can start using it later and stuff
Yeah.
as a resource, basically. Because yeah, like I don't want to just rest on my laurels with it. You know, like, once we find a solid place, yeah, that's cool. But let's like even so going forward with each issue, let's try to fine tune like what
Yeah.
we do a little differently. You know.
Oh, that's pretty sick. And then
Yeah.
just the idea of how a comic book is made is crazy. 'Cause you said you came up with a whole glossary of all these like little action words, and then you have, this is all out of your pocket. Right? So just the fact that this came out of your pocket,
Yeah.
it didn't come from like other people's resources and stuff. It came
Yeah.
from you and a collaborative, two other dudes?
Yeah, just the editor and the artist, and that's it. Like it's mostly like with the editor back and forth, like, hey, what do you think of this script? Is this corny or is this funny? Like I think it is.
Yeah.
It's like, hey man, you can't just rely on if you think you're funny all the time, because not stand-up comics get that kind of freedom.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when they do their stand-up, you can see real right
Oh, yeah.
immediately what works
Right
and what
away.
don't work, and you
Yeah.
can tweak it accordingly real
Uh-huh.
quick. This one, you know, it's more like once you put your shot out there, that's kind of it, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and so you kind of want it to hit on the mark with your first outing in a way,
Mhm.
not to where you're getting like 10 out of 10s all over the place.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I can settle for A,
Yeah.
for 8, you know, out of
So,
10 and stuff.
do you try to pass it around people to get like first look at it,
Yeah.
or is it hard because once they see it and then you try to revise it, like, oh, I remembered it this way. Now you change the story.
Yeah. Like I even consider that if I did that, it would basically be kind of like just a one-off re-release kind of thing. And what I would do with that one is basically like, because the inside of the panels, like, you know, they look great and everything. But if I had my way, I would basically have them look like just like the cover all the way
yeah.
through.
Mhm.
You know, that would be my thing. So
Yeah.
if I was going to do that, I
Yeah.
would do it like this. And then what I got inspired by too was also like with Resident Evil 2 and their remakes and stuff, how they did it, like how they executed it and stuff with the story and everything, was they took what was there and they fleshed it out a little further than
Yeah.
what it was. And it still was like in line with everything and all that, but they just fleshed it out just a little bit more. And I'm like, yes, that's it. And so that's what I would do. Like if I was to release like this whole story arc, uh, just like that, flesh things out just like a little bit more, do things a little bit differently. Like, you know, because I can look back some of the panels like, oh man, like where I'm at now, like I would totally done that differently. You know, like then to compare it to where I'm at now with
Yeah.
issue 5 and issue 6, more conscious of like what I want to do visually and stuff. But then, you know, at the same time, you got to embrace like, you know, you're not always, you know, you're not going to be an expert at this. Like, it's very, so you got to kind of embrace, you know, your suck. You know, if you're not the best at this, you're the worst at it. Hey, I mean, that just means you got more hard work to put in and learn it, you know, than others and stuff. But at the same time, don't get caught up on their format. Like, if their format doesn't necessarily work for you, there's all kinds of other formats to write and all this kind of stuff. Because say, like, I'm writing in a movie script format. I'm not writing in a comic script.
Yeah.
Technically, I should, but that works for me, so I stick with it. You know?
Yeah. It's that Bruce Lee quote: "Take what's necessary, remove what's unnecessary, and pretty much be waterproof."
Absolutely.
That's entirely it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I kind of come into as well, like with the series and stuff, like with like the idea of waters basically, it was always there kind of thing and stuff. So I'm like, yeah, you could argue this might be like throwing you in the middle of it too much, but at the same time, nah, because like it's really too like I want to ensure you get to know these characters along the way, sure, but at the same time, are you having a good time with them?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of my thing, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Because at the end of the game, like this is about entertainment too.
Mhm.
So it's like, are you having fun with these characters as well?
Mhm,
You know?
mhm.
So like there's a lot of times like I'm not trying to take it too seriously, you know. And even myself, like I get a little caught up as like with like series nowadays, you know, that's like, man, dude, who's writing the script? Like it's like all this cussing left and right. And I'm like starting to feel like an adult. And like, you know what I mean? Like, jeez, it's all the swang. But it's like to me, it's more like I'm coming from as a writer. I'm like, dude, this is like
Mhm.
not like groundbreaking, you know, not necessarily groundbreaking, but I mean, it's to me it's kind of derivative. It's
Yeah.
distracting from the point of it. Like you're taking away precious screen time just to have all this,
Yeah,
left and right, yeah, and all that and what have you, and it's stuff like, dude, you still have a story to tell.
Yeah,
And I'm like, nah, you can do all that and then still have them be charismatic. To the audience. Not they ain't got to be charming more so than like charismatic. Because like, hey, yeah, who works for this guy isn't gonna work, for people who like Kiev more or
Mhm.
any of the other characters, because I run into people all the time, like they'll like certain characters, and I'm like, good, that's the point. Like, you're not gonna like every single character. This is like really just like branch out and reach a whole wider audience.
Yeah, every kid had their favorite Power Ranger.
Yeah.
Whether it was just the color or whether it was just who that Ranger was.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone had their specific one, and then they were like, "Well, I kind of like that one. I kind of like this one."
Oh man, take it from me, I went all out with the Red Ranger. Like when the movie came out, I went my cosplay with the Red Ranger. Oh yeah. Like but then it's one of those too where it's kind of like the character is a little reflective of reality, because a lot of people like once Tommy came into the picture with the cool white the white tiger or whatever, everyone was on that. I was like, man, this is the new kid. Like y'all just all harboring on the new kid with this cool outfit. The Red Ranger was always here. Whatever. He was the original badass of the team.
I think I was always the green Power Ranger, honestly.
Yeah, no, the Green Power Ranger was bad, and that's why even with that character, I take influences from. They start out evil and then they turn good, kind of thing. But it was more so like having these badass moments with it, because like one of his was where he jumps into their sword and kicks them all out, like whatever. I was like, dude, stuff like that, like that's what makes people a threat. Stuff like that. Not all this swearing, this, that, and that. They're like, this don't scare nobody.
Yeah.
And you run into little kids that go off swearing like that, and does that scare anybody?
No.
And so like that's where I'm coming off in some of these. It's like, dude, no, this is weak. Like, this is some weak writing and stuff. Like, to me, to convey a threat, watch some old school movies and stuff, and you see how they do it and everything. Watch some, read some books, because I like Louis L'Amour books and stuff, more Western style books. But there was parts where he would get more supernatural stuff, and that like was me real appealing and all that, because I like supernatural mixed in with like westerns and stuff, some horror. And that's actually feeding into this other idea I want to do, which I think we're making for it was like this western horror. It was like involving like an outlaw cowboy, that kind of thing, and samurai dude. And it was kind of like they were all on a train and stuff, going from like town to town to get to this one final destination kind of stuff. And so little things like that. Yeah, so I was like, let's take inspiration from that. They come across these demonic creatures, whatever. There's like whatever. And
you could even make it like bone tomahawk. Have you ever seen that?
Actually, I have.
Yeah.
That was one of the gnarliest I've ever seen in a whole while as far as a horror western goes. Yeah. And I like me some survival horror, like I say. But there's scenes in there that get pretty real, pretty gnarly, pretty quick. Yeah. And as much as I like that and stuff too, I'm like,
there's a certain appetite for it.
Yeah. Because some of it is like, whoa, man, like that could turn it off. Like I like drawing influences from movies like Pitch Black on that one, because that was like a whole survival story, like survive the night kind of thing, and it was like from getting from point A to point B type thing. Yeah. And so like little stuff like that, is what like makes me give me these little ideas and stuff, because it's like, yeah, they've been out there before, but have they been told like this? Yeah. Because ultimately that's like. My idea is kind of like that movie, the John Wayne movie Stagecoach, because that was the same thing. On a stagecoach getting from point A to B with all this other stuff popping off around them, I think with Indians or whatever. Right? Yeah. And so that's where it's like, but you take that and put it in a whole different direction to where it's not just some cowboys versus aliens thing. Yeah.
That was a good movie, but at the same time, it's like, that you could just let a kid enjoy his mind and make that himself. Yeah. That's just sci-fi and a lot of money.
I always thought it was a cool idea. I just felt like that one, it could have had a little more horror to it. Yeah. That was just my kind of beef with it. Like, because like even like with X-Files and stuff like that, you get into those horror sci-fi things, and it was like grounded enough to where it was like believable kind of thing.
You know what I had always wanted to see was a more rated R Men in Black.
Yeah.
That would have been fun, just to kind of sit back. That would be
fun.
That
would be fun.
Just because, one, Will Smith, that whole movie, like, it would be more fun, not with the cuss words or anything, but just his mannerisms and dealing with actual alien, murder.
Yeah. Like, you can actually have like a whole self-contained story like that, where it's more like a neo-noir kind of like detective thing. Like, that would be interesting. You can have some like brutal fight scenes even in there, where it's not like just these You know,
Because it was a good.
so I can almost see Blade Runner actually when you talk like that. Like,
Yeah.
I can see like some Blade Runner aspects to it, except without the androids, it's more aliens and stuff. Maybe like at this point they're all living amongst them and stuff like that. You know?
And you can add a little bit more of the thing the Kurt Russell movie, The Thing, kind of have the shape shifting a little bit better because you can't really shape shift in a PG.
Nah,
But
that would be like straight pure body horror, and that's what I always thought was the best about the thing.
Because aliens can't just like they're just not. You know, they're one of us around here, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No.
And no, see, that would be gnarly one. Probably have to copyright that one. I actually think that would be cool. Stuff like that, you know, that's just how easy you can take to amalgamate things.
Yeah.
Just little things we've seen and stuff would just take it to a whole other direction. You know, like Wild Wild West. Wouldn't that be a cool one if there was like a little more, you know, serious action or something?
Less funny, more serious, a little bit more drama, stuff like this.
Had some fight scenes like the Raid or something.
Yeah.
Let's throw some spice in there.
Which I will say, Tom Hardy has that new movie Havoc. I haven't been able to see it, but director is the director of the Raid.
Really?
Yeah. So it's supposed to be kind of like that thrash you around kind of movie,
you
know?
I dare say like that dude, like as much as he's not like had a prolific career in action, like dude, with the ones he's done so far, like you can definitely direct action. Yeah. You should direct more action, but
he needs more action.
That's why I say at the same time, like I'm more punk rock about it too. And it's like, hey man, don't just do what you feel. Yeah. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, because then if you're not feeling it and then you're trying to do it, you know, then it's gonna show, you know, and all that stuff. And that's why like the Raid 1 and 2, they're fine. Like because that's what you wanted to do, and then you had the passion for it. And if you don't have it to do the third one, then hey, that's cool, man. Yeah. I mean, I really want it. Third Raid movie like that could cap it all or something like that. And you have a whole trilogy. Yeah. But at the same time, if you're not feeling it, then don't do it. Yeah. You know, then it'd be better to do that than to just put it out there and then it's something, you know. Yeah,
what you don't want to do is a disservice to people who love the first two, and then you kind of leave it on a crappy ending.
Yeah, and an extension yourself. Yeah, you know, when you go through that, it
pulls back right into legacy. You just kind of tarnish a little bit of it.
Absolutely,
by doing a money grab.
Absolutely, you always got to consider the long game versus the short.
Yeah, but what I will say is this shit is dope.
No, I gotta set you up with some copies and stuff. Like, cause like I say, I have this event coming up in June 19th. Okay. It's that Chemical Toy Fair event, and it's at Ben-Hur Shriners over there. I just forget the address completely, but it's right near the Draft House Village, right where the Northcroft Mall used to be. Okay. Actually, yeah. And so like I've been over there, like just pushing comics and stuff. I actually had stickers too. I was meaning to bring some actually. It's all good.
But no, man. So this is available at certain.
Yeah, so I have some copies available on me and stuff, so you can reach me through Instagram. You can reach me through the website that we're trying to get back together once I get that set up, and then also through live events and all that. I'm pushing the copies there. I also have them digitally. You can get that through.
And this is your Instagram handle, right? Reactive. Yeah. Reactive weaponized armor.